Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Next Level Real Talk Podcast, where we have conversations on the journey of personal transformation and the pursuit of lasting peace and happiness with Sheldon and David. And welcome back to another episode of Next Level Real Talk Podcast here with Sheldon and David. Hey, Dave.
Hey, how we doing? Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a great week. Hope you had a chance to listen to our last podcast. Some great talks and great conversation, and hope you're doing well.
Yeah, it was an awesome interview with Matt Piper. And
Yep.
I hope you had a chance to take a listen to that one. And what we thought we would talk about today and this week was something that feels like it's really pertinent. Don't know when you'll be hearing this, but if you're hearing it kind of recently to when we release them, we are in this time of a lot of
Good.
angst, a lot of politics, a lot of division, a lot of however you want to look at it. You can look at it as polarity. The spiritual community talks about energy and polarity, right? There's a polarization, that energy that is going on. You look at politics, you can look at that instead of right and left, it's extreme right and extreme left, right?
Mm-hmm.
People, and you can see that on any kind of number of topics, right? Where it feels like people are growing further apart, not closer together.
Yeah,
And we've
politics kind of tends to polarize people at certain points.
nowadays,
Yeah, yes, nowadays, and so the as we talk about our next level finding peace on your journey is it's hard to do when you have sometimes have that deep conversation, start talking politics, that brings up the because maybe
yeah,
one side or the other, and that's not what we plan on doing today. We're not talking politics. We're
yeah,
talking about how to process that journey and stay calm through the discussions and through the journey as the season happens.
yes, how to build bridges, how to build
Hmm.
connection, um,
Yeah,
how to continue to love and feel empathy and compassion and connectedness to somebody who might not have the same view as you on a
exactly.
particular issue. How do we do
Mhm.
that, right? Because I think um,
Yeah.
that's what we need more of, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And it feels like you're seeing less and less of that, right? And
Hmm.
when a little bit of what's going on there, and maybe some tools and some ideas and some thoughts that Dave, you have some experiences with, and I
Hmm.
know I do as well, and I think all of us do as Americans or whatever, right? As we're going through this whole process of, and even in other countries, um, I think the same energy is going on, the same polarization, the same extremism,
Hmm.
same, left and right or whatever it is, east and west, whatever you want to call it, right? That there's this
Hmm.
sort of energy that is creating um, this idea of separation. And how do you build bridges and how do you build communion in that? How do you build
Hmm.
community? How do you build a connection and all of that? To me, it comes down, if just to sort of, I guess, throw it in, it's like, how do you look at the other person, right? I think
Go ahead.
I think in the old days, or it number one, in the old days, you used to not talk about it,
Mhm.
right? Back in
Yeah.
when we were growing up, we were talking about the differences, like in when we were growing up before we started recording, right? How
Hmm.
back in the day there was guys that would carry a gun on their rack, the back of their truck on the way to
At
school.
school. Yeah, because they were going hunting after school on Friday or that weekday, and so they pull in the parking lot. There's
with
that truck with
with
the
a
gun
rifle
rack
in the
with the
back.
gun on it, right from the back.
And no big deal.
That's
Nobody cared. Nobody,
Nope.
nothing happened. So obviously a very different time than it is now.
Mhm.
Um, but it also was kind of like, right, you didn't talk about politics and you didn't talk about money.
Yeah.
That was my recollection
Mhm.
growing up. His families didn't talk
Yep.
about it. So your neighbor might be voting one way and you might be voting the complete opposite. You never cared. They were still your neighbor,
Yeah. Mhm.
they were still your friend.
And
They just,
now it's so hard because if you pick any topic, which we're not gonna talk topics, we're just gonna talk about how to deal with them all. But if I pick a topic and talk to you about it, you may be on the total opposite side.
yeah,
And most times, not always, most times, you and I cannot talk about it. We argue
yeah,
like, no, this is the way it is.
yeah,
But there's a way to look at that. Obviously, if a stranger off the street is different, but amongst friends, I assume you'd be talking politics with friends or family, is to find that common ground and find like, hey, this is a piece. It's an area of no judging. Like, hey, let's just talk about it. Where are you coming from? Why are you so on this, and why am I so on this? It may be our background. It may be how I was raised, or how you were raised. Like, oh, I didn't see it that way, and we tend to get stuck in our own brains. Blah, 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 and I'm gonna throw my dad and God rest his soul, and my stepmom under the bus. Um, I walk in, they're watching the news, and like, oh no, it's I go, whoa, whoa, that's that careful. That's not really what it is.
Yeah.
I go, that is some of it, but it's a little bit extra.
Yeah.
I go, so you have to have that, like, they're like, oh, I go, I know you don't understand that, but you don't believe that, but understand that's right, but it's not that
Yeah.
right. And so it's just understand, like, hey, can I understand something about somebody else? I may never agree with them, but now I see where that other ground
So,
is, like, oh, that's what that group is thinking.
tell us about, because you were talking before we started recording about, what you were
Mhm,
doing with a friend of yours and that process and how that evolved. I think that's a beautiful story, and I think a nice model for a way that,
mhm. So Steve Wardell, shout out to Steve Wardell, is a buddy from City Tempe. We were lifeguards together and managed the pools together, and um, disconnected for a while, just in life. And then his son started swimming for me, so we became connected again. And we've been hanging out once a week, just talking and just catching up as friends. And I want to say 2 election cycles ago, I'm not really sure when, but the we were sitting there talking about um, it was just talking about what the laws were that we're voting on, the people we were voting on, the situations, and we both like, I don't understand this one. I don't understand it either. So we were sitting there having a drink and a bite to eat. We brought our ballot and we said, okay, what does this one say? Well, that proposition says blah 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 blah. Like, and we're trying to help each other understand it. And I
yeah.
go, he goes, how are you going to vote? I go, well, I just said, yeah, I'm going to vote yes. He goes, oh, I was going to vote no. I go, okay, this is why I'm voting yes, blah, 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 blah. He goes, this is why I'm voting no. Oh. And we just organically had this conversation and we agreed, like going, oh, okay. And there was one I remember, he said something, I go, wow, I never thought of it that way. And he goes, that's what I'm seeing. And so we dwelled a little bit more into it. And I go, you know what? I'm changing my mind. This is where I'm going to go. Because I got a chance to see it from someone else's perspective
Mhm.
rather than just mine.
Yeah.
Um, and there's issues that we totally agree on. And there's some that are right outside of it. Like, okay, let's have a talk.
Yeah.
And then there's those. Then there's the ones. And we're like, and it's kind of cool. I wouldn't have that conversation with anybody else, the ones out here,
Yeah.
besides him right now. Cause how close can I get to certain people? Um, but like him, I'm like, I'm far this way, he's far the other way. I would say east and west. I want to go right and left. He's east, I'm west. And we're
Yeah.
like, and I go, okay, just tell me. And I tell him, like, just being who I am. Now I see someone else's perspective, you
Yeah.
know, and it may change it over time.
Right.
The things like I realized that my political stuff has changed from when I got married. Okay, things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
having Ashley as my daughter, things that have happened, and hearing
Life
somebody else's story,
experiences shape
life experiences.
shape
Yes,
what your beliefs and your values are, right? And
exactly.
everybody's are different.
Mhm.
Um,
And so instead of going at somebody, saying, "Oh, I can't believe you believe that," I said, "Well, how can you believe that?
yeah.
Where's that thought coming from?"
Yeah.
Well, they went through a life experience. Maybe they have. Okay, I'm not for or against guns. People just understand that. It's like, okay, let's say there's that issue, and they're saying, "Hey, this is why I carry a gun and have it in my house." And maybe someone disagrees with that. Well, why? Because this is what happened in my past.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you feel that need, which understand I don't have that, but you
Right.
do. Oh, I get it.
Yes.
Okay. So and rather than going like, you're such a dummy, rah, 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 and being angry, just find out where the person's coming from and see who they are.
Yeah. And I think one of the fundamental reasons why that conversation that you were able to have worked even when it got a little testy, because I think you're saying sometimes it got a little bit,
Mhm.
right? It's not like
Uh-huh.
you guys could be passionately, uh, discussing your viewpoints, right? Even when it got a little testy, there was a fundamental mutual respect
Mhm.
and a fundamental sort of love, if you will, right? That you understood that this is person a good human being, and you had a respect for that person. And so that's something that I think gets lost. right? And
Yes.
that's why you were saying, oh, you might not have this conversation with just anybody, right? Because
Correct.
sometimes if it's more casual, that mutual love and respect won't be so grounded and strong. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? And it's
Yes.
like the strong when we have that grounding of mutual humanity and mutual, we see the humanity of all of us, right? And we see all of us as equal. Um, then you can have differences without taking offense so easily, right?
Yeah. And it's okay, let's just say it's somebody, uh let's say it's a school, it's a colleague that I don't really know,
Mm,
and they come in, they say something, I may disagree. You could you can blow up and say, "Oh, you're dumb because you believe that." Then that means okay, you're not willing to talk to anybody. You only believe in yourself, which is sad. But you say, "Okay, where are you coming from on that?"
yeah,
Okay, can you help me understand more what you're talking about? And hopefully, I have to come across to help them stay calm. Because if I come at them, they're not going to be calm. They're going to come back at me, per se.
yeah, it's
So if there's a
beautiful.
way that, yeah, if I can say, okay, so I understand you're very passionate about this, but let's have a general conversation. I'd like to hear more about it or where you're coming from, and I can tell
Yeah,
you where I'm coming from.
yeah,
Not that we know that we're opposite yet, but I
yeah.
can tell, oh, well, he's the tits. How you coming for this? But so starting out, I can either make it aggressive or I can make it calm. So I
It's
have the
beautiful,
first
dude.
choice.
And
I have the
and and
first
it's
choice.
and it's having sincere, honest curiosity about the other person's viewpoint,
Yes.
right? Like, "Hey,
Hmm.
I'm seeking to understand who you are and where you're coming from." And that's a place of fundamental respect, right? That is, I'm
Yeah.
honoring your opinion and your thoughts, and I respect them, and I wanna get to know them even more. So that
Hmm.
usually will calm people down, right? Because
Yes.
they feel like they're being heard. Right?
Hmm.
So what you're doing there is beautiful. It's powerful too, right? It's saying, "Hey, I wanna understand you, and I wanna hear where you're coming from, and I wanna get to know what your thought process is." Right? And
Yes.
so that's a very non-threatening thing to do and a respectful, loving thing to do. Honestly, that's a very loving thing to do. It's like, I wanna
Hmm.
understand you, and I wanna get to know you.
Yeah.
Um, that's beautiful, dude. It's like I had, and I still travel all over the country for my work.
Hmm.
And, I've mentioned before in previous shows, I think about like, I thought that there was going to be, I was a little concerned about some of the racial stuff that whether or not I would encounter it. Um,
Hmm.
cause, uh, I had some things happen, I've had things over my life and, Arizona is a lovely state.
Hmm.
I still love Arizona and have nothing but wonderful feelings, but it's not that nothing happened back then. But
Yeah.
times were very different back then, right? It's like literally our family's like one of the only Asian families running around that place. You know what I mean? There's
Yep.
like hardly any.
Mhm.
And now it's way more diverse. You know what I mean? People are just
Way
used
more.
to it. But
Hmm.
times have changed, right? But I didn't know whether how it would be around the country, going
Hmm.
into Mississippi, Alabama, some of the deep South, right? You just
Yeah.
don't know, right? And there's stereotypes about those areas, um, just like we, tend to stereotype about people, right?
Hmm.
Um, and the brain does that naturally as a sort of an organizing mechanism in the brain, right? It's just like, it's pattern recognition and all that stuff, and the neuroscience of all that. I totally understand. Um, but I will tell you, I've been doing this for 6 years. I've never had an incident, not even a tiny one, with strangers
Wow.
on the street, with people I work with. These are guys
Good.
working on cars in the shop. They're dudes working with the metal, working with their hands. These are, lads, as Jacqueline would say. These are, you know, just, you know, dudes, in the trades, as they would say. And
Hmm.
nothing but beautiful experiences. Nothing. 100% beautiful
Yeah.
experiences with people. Now, some of those people were very strong in their opinions. Some of them wore it on their t-shirts. Some of them had it on the back of
Yeah.
their truck. Some of them
Yep.
had it, you know what I mean? And one way or the other. But, one of the things that Dalai Lama always likes to say is, and he would talk about it in a very simplistic terms, which I think is helpful, is just like, "Hey, we all just wanna, you know, have a better life, wanna make better for ourselves, wanna
Hmm.
take care of our families. We want our family security to be secured, and we wanna be able,
Yep.
put food on the table," kinda thing. It's kinda like the basics, right? And that's all
Yeah.
he always gets down to the basics. We're all
Mm.
human. We all wanna feel safe in our homes. We wanna be able to provide food for our families. We want our kids to do better than we did. Let's just keep it there. Um, And it's kind of funny because things have gotten so polarized that if you keep it right there, it's simple, right? It's easy. And
Mhm.
that's true, right? And that is true of all of us. And the funny thing is sometimes in the details, right? Well, how do you keep your family safe? Well, you got to do this, and well,
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
sometimes it doesn't
mhm.
take very long before it goes whoosh, in opposite
Yep,
directions, right?
yep.
So that is funny, but also I think seeing your brother as yourself, I
Mhm.
think from that sort of spiritual, energetic, um, Christian perspective is
Yeah.
loving thy neighbor as thyself, right?
Mhm.
Like that person is an extension and a part of me. We are not separate and different. They are not better or worse than me. I am not better or worse than them. We are all equal,
Yeah.
and we're all just trying to get through this thing we call our lives, right? And if we have that really grounded in ourselves, and I think in our heart that we're all the same, then the
Mhm.
conversation comes naturally, like what you had, Dave, which is, "Hey, share with me
Yeah,
some more. I want to understand
yeah.
that." You know. And the other thing is, I think when we have that grounding, we're not so easily shakable and so insecure
Yeah.
about what we are thinking and feeling either,
Mhm.
right? So it's
Yeah. So,
okay
like
for us to be different. It's not a threat to who I am, my manhood, or
exactly.
whatever. You know?
Mhm. So, like Steve and I are starting that process again. Obviously, this is the time of year. We got our little pamphlet. We're already discussing some of the propositions, but we got to get the ballot to see what we're really voting for because it's different counties and different stuff. And so it's two scenarios. So Steve and I get together, and we have this conversation. Okay, I'm not saying we're totally opposites. It's just that we do have different views on certain things. Um, but so we have that good conversation. I could be with him and okay, yeah, we're having or let's just say you and I are both this belief. This that's an easy conversation. You're not going to have easy. The problem is when I have someone outside of my beliefs, okay, and I see them, I have two choices. I can say, you know what, you're stupid, you're dumb, I don't believe what you believe in, because you do this and you do that and you believe this. Or I could just not even engage and just
Mm,
say, hmm, I want to know more about where they're coming from. If I get a chance, ask them if they're not going to be aggressive back. You got to,
yeah,
look at the whole
sure.
scenario. Um, or if I sit down with someone and we don't have that, exact same, you sit down. If you're sitting down with someone, then you can have more of a conversation. And and again, it goes back to that how you approach it. I could approach someone and just start an argument and it's just going to blow. It's going
Yeah,
to blow up. Or I can sit there and just go, do I say anything? Or is there a chance for me to calmly say something?
yeah,
And so it begins with you, me, as
yeah,
the individual of
yeah.
how that whole scenario is going to go with every situation. So,
And yeah, totally. I think that, um, I always have said this, and I said it before on the podcast, that to me, the whole knowledge of tree and of good and evil, Adam ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and was cast
mhm,
out of heaven, that's a metaphor for once you start judging, you're no longer in your heart, you're in your mind. You're judging what's
mhm,
wrong and right. And
mhm,
the notion of love can hold space and capacity. Love has the capacity to hold space for everything, right?
yeah.
All
Mhm.
the spectrum of humanity. It's like, God or the divine or whatever you want to call it has the capacity to love all of creation and on a certain level doesn't care. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't care what you voted for, you're still my child kind of thing,
Right?
right?
Yeah,
And having,
exactly.
that sort of remembrance that judge that casts you're literally casting yourself out because you're going, "You're bad, you're good, you're
Yeah.
that's right,
Mhm.
that's wrong," and you're the one going around judging everybody.
You're
Isn't
the
there a
judge,
line,
yeah.
"Who am I to judge?" Right? Who am I to judge,
And
right?
that's the whole thing. I These ballot propositions, I'm like, I don't know what they're all about. I mean, we got 2 pages of this stuff this year. It's like I
I
told
think
Steve, we may have to meet twice a week, drink some beers
for
and
a little
have a
extra
lot more food.
overtime here.
I go, "This is extra homework, man. Come on, man."
I think
But
it's a beautiful thing that you're even spending the time to do that because I think a lot of people don't,
mm,
you know,
yeah,
a
and I
lot
and
of
I
a lot of
I
people
did tell
don't.
Sheldon, okay, I'm the voting nerd. I'm the weird one. I do vote for judges, and I research the judges,
Yeah,
and they're in the little pamphlet it talks about the good judges and bad judges, and I
yeah.
have voted against a couple judges in my time because the group that grades them, I
Evaluated them,
guess,
yeah.
evaluates them. Yeah, I I don't know who they are, but I trust them, and
Yeah.
it's given negatives, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? If they're saying something's negative, I'm gonna agree with you. And so I
Yeah.
have done that, and Steve was kind of shocked when I said it one time. He's like, "What? You vote for the judges?" I go, "Yeah, it's the whole thing right here. I spend time on going, okay, yep, 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 And so it's if you just want to, if you're not really into the politics and stuff, that's great. Just keep moving on. But if you're into it, you got to start going into the season because everything, like you said, is so polarized nowadays. It can be a very bad month or two, okay, up to the election and the month after the election, or it can be okay, this is going to be a rough road, okay, but I'm going to try and move through this very calmly and try to talk to people in a calm manner.
And
'Cause I
and
want to learn more.
yeah, and just remembering that because somebody believes differently doesn't make them bad. I think that
No,
that's the thing that has gotten so
huge.
tense is, and that virtue signaling thing didn't help, right? Doesn't help, right? Oh, you
Hmm.
do certain thing and it shows you're a good person or whatever, It's like,
Yeah,
but keeping in your heart that you know, we're all
it was.
humans, we're all equal,
Hmm.
and regardless of what somebody believes, you know, it's okay. They're entitled to that and can still be my friend and I can still have nothing but love for you, nothing but empathy, nothing but compassion, nothing but kindness and you know what I mean? And we
Yeah,
can get along
there's
and
a.
hang out and talk about other stuff. We need to talk about this stuff, right? And can
Yeah.
still have a rich, fulfilling relationship. Just
Hmm. There's a.
remembering that.
Yeah, when I was reading uh quite a few years ago, I was reading, going through a Bible verse and some stuff, a little piece, and then a little caption below, have a little extra end notes, and it says, judge the action, not the person. And I was like, wow, that's what you're exactly saying. Like, this is still a good person because they don't have the same exact belief or on this proposition. How dare they? They're a bad person.
Yeah.
Well, no, they have a different belief, they have a different situation. That's where, if you need to, ask them, why are
Yeah.
you voting for it this way?
Yeah.
But make sure it's in a calming way.
Yeah.
Don't be aggressive. It's just
Yeah.
like that. Because guess what? You may learn so much more. I've learned so much more because Steve and I've had these conversations,
Yes.
and he's actually gone home and talked to his wife about it and said,
Yeah.
hey, this is what we're doing. He comes back the next week. Like, this is what Terry said. Oh, wow. By the way, hi, Terry. And so they've had those
Yes.
conversations, and it kind of opens it up. That's like, wow, so calming, you know?
It
And at school, I can have these conversations with people because they may walk through the library, which everybody walks through the library. The conversation is up. It's like, okay, so what are we thinking here? But
I
the second big piece of that is you have to be present and listen. If you just say, yeah, Sheldon, I want to hear your point of view on that. And you're like, well, stupid.
or you're
That's
waiting for
stupid.
the person to finish talking so you can jump in, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's like, no, you got to be present and listen because otherwise you're not going to hear like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
So.
I think it's like, you know, letting go of judgment, which is hard, right?
Mhm.
That whole I'm the judge and I know what's right or wrong, and having innocent wonder. I think that those are the
Yeah.
energies, right? Become as you must become as a child to return to gain heaven, right? I think that there's this sense of innocent wonder, which is what you're talking about. Oh, why do you believe that? Tell me, explain it to me,
Mhm.
right? You're not being defensive about your beliefs and you're going to counter, which is what you're saying. You have to be present and really listen to that person, right? Because when
Mhm.
you're it because some people some oftentimes, and it's very common, we all do it, right, is you're listening to wait for the stop so you can jump in, right? That's
Yes.
how a lot of us, sometimes in conversations, some people, it's like super intense. You can tell they're not listening to you. They're just and then they just
Because
blurt out,
yeah, they're processing what they're gonna say rather than listening.
Right, right, and it's hard
So.
to stop that, right? It's hard to say, "Okay, let me
Mhm.
be really present and let me hear you." Right?
Mhm.
And then why do you believe that? And what does that mean to you? And asking those questions shows that you're really number one, you have to be really listening to be able to even ask those questions, right?
Mhm.
So, but it also is a sign of respect. People will
Yeah.
feel heard and respected. So they'll be far more tolerant and willing to hear your side once they feel like you've heard their side, I think.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
you're
I think so too,
building,
yeah.
yeah, you're creating a whole container for this mutually loving, respectful conversation to happen,
Mhm.
um, which doesn't happen online.
No.
You
Because
know?
because you're hidden behind the
Yeah.
screen.
So
There's
I
nobody
do
there.
think it takes some kind of real intimate face-to-face
Mhm.
conversation or that
And
kind of thing.
and when you okay, obviously Steve and I have been friends for a long time, so we have that conversation. We can have those conversations in the daily life. But if I meet someone, someone's like an acquaintance at work, let's say that let's use school still, or acquaintance at school, and don't sit down and have conversations. But one time I just have that small, hey, dialogue going back and forth. Eventually, that could be a relationship to where whenever we talk, we don't have to be best friends. There's that respect of, hey, what they're going to say, I'm going to listen. What I'm going to say, they're going to listen.
Mhm,
And it's out of like, hey, I want to learn something more, or I want to help you learn from my side,
mhm.
you know, because we can always learn. And I'm telling you, every time Steve and I talk about this stuff, I've learned something new. I'm like, God, I'm 60 years old. I'm still learning stuff. I'm like, what? I didn't
Yeah,
think of it that way.
yeah,
You think, but and I will tell you, it calms me going through the season that Steve and I can sit there and talk about it, because it's like I'm not going like, oh, that's a stupid law, that's a stupid law, that's a stupid person.
yeah.
It's like, and even if you like, Senator A, I like Senator B, we can have that discussion, and say like, hey, you can put a bet on it. I bet you $10 I'm going to win. You're not. I'm going to do something, to make it calm. It's like, you like Senator A because of this, and that's understandable because of that one thing. I like Senator B because of this. That's okay. It doesn't mean that I have to come over to your side. It's just like, huh, okay, so that's where he's gonna go. That's okay. But you can have that without being like, God, I can't believe he has that. Like Senator A,
Right, right,
that
right.
Senator A does this and does that. Mine does this and that. Well, now you just became a commercial.
Yeah.
Okay, you became a commercial without all the information. So, yeah, which I hate those, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, and and you have to listen to what is the truth, because there's a lot of untruth out there. And we're not getting politics, but that's where you have to open up and go, where's this coming from?
Yeah, that's a
And
tricky one, dude.
and so I'm gonna use I'm gonna use a political commercial, and I'm sorry everybody out there, because I don't want to have politics in here. I'm not gonna say what side either what I'm on, but I heard one as I'm driving to work one day. An ad. It was anti-Trump. Okay. And it's as they're saying this, okay, the voice, not Trump voice, the other voice, the narrator goes, yeah, Trump wants something. He wants to get at everybody. It was a negative thing in him, obviously.
Yeah,
And it says, I would do, Trump says, I would do all in my power to do what I need to get justice or vengeance. So the narrator was saying that was him going to come out at us as the people, going to say, I'm a dictator. I'm doing this. And as they're talking, I'm listening to all the blips of what Trump was saying. I'm
mhm,
going like, that was when North Korea was an issue. And he
yeah,
says, I'm going to come after them with all the constitutional rights that I have. Not at me.
yeah,
You took that
and
and put it here. And so, thank you, Lord. In my brain, going like, that's a bad commercial.
yeah,
Whether
yeah,
I'm for or against him,
yeah,
I knew that those clips were out of something for war. So yes, when he was president, he had right to do that.
yeah,
But they made it, boom.
yeah,
And I'm gonna go the other side. There's one with Kamala Harris. Okay. There was
mhm,
an ad. I'm going like, she just said that 5 weeks ago, and it was nothing compared to that. It was something on this.
yeah,
And so, but if you take it out of context and you say something before
yeah,
and then put it in there, it's like, well, that's not what she really said.
yeah.
So that's the hardest thing to do. That is the hardest thing to do.
The,
So,
spin it used to be called spin, right?
yep.
Like, you're gonna take
Hmm.
a truth and you're gonna shine the best light on it. And
Yep.
to me, there's, like, nothing wrong with that. Okay, hey,
Hmm.
we wanna look positive, right? We wanna shine the best light on our candidate or whatever
Hmm.
the thing is. But now it's just outright lies,
Outright lies.
distortion,
Hmm.
to where stuff is getting distorted to the point where you can't even know unless you're really spending the time and you're really paying attention and you really do a little bit of research, you
Hmm.
know, the sources are so, it's like there's a certain lack of credibility in the sources of information that we used to have,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
like, so
And
it's like,
if I
that's
hadn't
tricky.
heard those blips before about either both of them, Harris or Trump, I would say, wow, he's saying that about the people. Oh, she's
Mm,
saying that about the people. I would not know. And so, which is sad. Thankfully, I'd heard those, but how many people haven't?
yeah,
And
yeah,
they go with it.
yeah,
And so the thing is, if something gets you so heated, stop,
drop,
drop in, and take a breath. and go,
Yeah.
okay, where is this coming from? And if it really is bothering you, research it.
Yeah.
You have the chance to go look for yourself. Investigate it. Go like, oh, this is what he said then. You know, but um, but don't be so rushed to judgment, which you've talked about, that judgment thing, and say, bah, 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 bah.
Yeah.
Take time. Be calm. Try to make
Yeah.
you have the choice to make yourself calm or to make yourself irritated and angry and boiling over.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully you choose the calm. Okay. I mean, you're going to be at first. It's like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So, uh,
And I think the number one key the point we're trying to make is, hey, um, love your neighbor as yourself.
yeah,
I think that's the number one thing, right?
hmm
It's a fundamental teaching that
yeah,
is usually
totally.
that is ignored all the time.
Yeah, yeah. The fundamental piece of life is ignored. Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
There's a
okay,
problem.
okay. So, let's just try to embody that teaching, which is,
Yeah.
"Hey, we're all in this together,"
hmm
every teaching has that. So, whatever the faith, is, whatever that is like, "Hey, we're all in this together, we're all humans, you know, we're all trying to take care of our families," like, kind of the dawn we're all just, wanting to get through
Yep.
this thing with a little bit more, joy in our life, a little bit more happiness, and how can we work together, and how can we build a community, and how can we stay together?
hmm
Um, and remembering those fundamental things, I think, and allowing for differences within that,
Yeah.
allowing for
Big
differences
time.
and saying, "Hey, it's okay. I still love you. You're still
Yeah.
my family. You're still my friend. You're still somebody who's important to me." And how and even when I understand your reason and your why, I might still disagree. I might still have my own why and my own, you know, and that's
hmm
okay. But the number
Yeah.
one most important thing is that our friendship stays. That,
Yes.
and I don't think that that's
Mhm.
something that's happening. I think that people are, and unfortunately, some people are making it that way, right? Um,
Yeah. I
some
can't be
people,
your friend if you don't believe what I believe.
yeah, that's happening, and that's
Which
okay. I
that means
think. If,
you're not your friend. Okay.
yeah,
That's how you
yeah,
go.
exactly. You know what I mean? If
Okay.
that's the values, then that's okay too, I guess, right? That
hmm
there is that I think there is some of that happening, but how do we sort of minimize that and allow for
Yeah.
space within our own heart to
hmm
be open to difference? And how do we? And I think I've talked way at the beginning about the whole yin yang symbol and the
hmm
black and the white, which is the right and the left, the east and the west, whatever, the yin
Yep.
and the yang, right? And that it's not staying in one side and looking at the other, it's the capacity to witness both equally, right?
Yeah.
The capacity
And
to sort of witness, which is what, Michael Singer talks about, right? Witnessing your thoughts, witnessing everything.
mhm.
It's a capacity to witness both sides of the polarity equally and staying in your heart, staying open and
Mhm.
staying at peace and grounded within your heart, regardless of what you see that is transpiring within
Yeah.
your in front of you, right? And can you stay equally at peace regardless of what you're witnessing? And that's tricky.
That's hard. Yeah,
No one.
as Sheldon and I talk about this, don't think like, "Oh, you do this tomorrow, you'll be fine." No, it takes time to get to that space. I mean, I'm telling you, you can't go like, I'm arguing with this person, and tomorrow go like, "Hey, let's have a talk," because
Yeah.
that's not gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
gotta be and you're talking about, getting into your heart and just being pure with yourself, is huge. And, I just wrote down, you know, the differences. It's okay to be different. There's not one of us in this world that are identically 100% the same.
Yeah.
I have two nephews. They're identical twins. They're not the same. Okay. They're called twins, but they are different,
Yeah.
in their own personality, their own
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
And so we have to, if you can step back and go, they're different from me, doesn't mean that they're different from me. How dare you be
Yeah.
so different? You're weird. No, it's like, wow, that's a cool difference. I've never understood that.
Mm.
And that person is this way, I'm this way. But it's okay to understand, and you get more of a joy in life, understand like, wow, I never understood that culture, never
Mm.
understood that thought, I never
Mm.
understood that way of doing something. So
Yeah.
then it opens you up to more knowledge and understanding and more respect for that person.
Yeah.
So
That's the beautiful perspective on diversity, right? And sometimes that
mhm.
thing gets all weird too, right? You can take anything and
Yeah.
make it weird.
Yes. Totally.
You can take any principle and go too far on one way, and it gets weird, gets distorted and bizarre,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
that we value, and that's a fundamental valuing of humanity, right? And differing
Mhm.
perspectives, right? And that the nation is stronger because we have a diverse population, not weaker,
Yeah.
right? That we can draw on different cultural perspectives and thought processes, and and that actually makes us a stronger country in both in business and economics as well as in
Mhm.
militarily and everything, right?
Yep.
That having diversity actually makes you stronger, and you're celebrating that. And not everybody believes that actually, right? But that's
No.
because I think some things have gotten so distorted and weird at the fringes of things that it's like you lose sight of that. But the
Yeah.
fun, right? Um, but anyway, so um,
Yeah,
yeah,
with
so it's a challenging time.
mhm.
I'm all
Yep.
about keeping things simple. I always say that the truth is simple, but it's not necessarily easy, right?
Yes.
Loving your neighbor as
Mhm.
yourself. That's a simple idea. That's a simple thing to say. It's so freaking simple. It's just like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, cool. That's it. Right? Not easy to put
But
into practice.
no, I was just gonna say, yes, I love my neighbor. Okay, now how do I love my neighbor? He does this, he does that,
Yeah,
or she
yeah,
does this, she does that. It's like,
yeah.
no, love my neighbor because
They drive me
they are who
crazy.
they are.
Yeah.
Step back, what we just said, step back, see what they are, see who they are. It's like, oh, like my neighbor Paul next door comes from England. You think there's not any difference between the two of us? But he and I sit and talk. We have great conversations. Kat is his partner. She's awesome, and it's fun to hear their perspective on things.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
I can say, "Well, you're from England. You don't know what's going on in America." Yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. It's because they're
And that's a
human.
big door opening. You
Yeah.
start seeing how the rest of the world, you know,
Mhm.
views us. It's very different.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. So,
very eye-opening.
it's huge to just step back and kind of step out of yourself and go, what's going on here? Okay, what's the
Mm,
situation? Either in a conversation, and sit down with like my neighbors, just having a drink and talking, or is it in a situation as we're talking political, to where can you sit down and have that conversation?
yeah,
It may take a little bit of time. I know we got a month away from the big election, but if you this may be something you work on for next year,
yeah,
okay, at any political season, it just slowly work that process with somebody. Um, or if they come at you and they're attacking you, basically, you just say, "Hey, I don't want to get into an argument. I just want to talk about it in a calm manner. If they can't talk about it in a calm manner, then walk away."
yeah,
You're in with that, and
yeah,
maybe next time they will. So the biggest thing is just again, they are you. Love your neighbor, and just understand. Go inside them. Don't get mad at them for their actions at times. Love them for who they are, and try to understand their actions
yeah.
and their beliefs. So
I think
yeah.
that's the homework.
Oh yeah. Yep. If you ever see me looking down, I'm not looking at anything else, but I'm trying to write notes because they're so sloppy. But by the way, I write sloppy notes anyway to start with. Um, first is make a choice. You can either go calmly at it or attack it. Okay, so if someone comes to you and says something, just be calm. Try to make it a calm thing. Oh yeah, if you're angry, oh yeah, you're stupid, you're wrong. Well, that's just going to blow. It's not going to be nice.
Choose
But
peace.
yeah, choose peace. You're the first person to choose
Yeah,
at that point, and you got to say, what do I want?
yeah,
And hopefully you say, I want calm. Then you say, okay, let's talk about this. Make it a calm situation.
yeah.
Second is be present. Okay. Um, be present, listen to them, because if you're not listening to them, you're not really having a conversation. Um, and try not to be speaking over them. Just listen and
Mhm.
go, this is where they're coming from. And you need to get the whole information about where they're coming from because you're going to learn. I mean, it's so fun to learn more from other people. And you may have that mutual agreement down the road, like, oh, this is kind of cool. I never understood that, but we become good friends. Um, on that, you need to let go of judgment. Open your heart, be in your heart, and let go of the judgment. Okay,
Mhm.
because we can all judge. You can judge the action or the thought, but don't judge the individual. Okay, because they are a wonderful person, love the person, but just question and talk about the situation. And then on that, it's okay to have differences. If you think there's not differences, then you don't live in the world. You live somewhere else. Okay,
Celebrate the
because
beauty of the differences.
yes, celebrate it because it's kind of cool. I
Yeah.
mean, the things we had. I mean, I growing up, I mean, I went over to your house many times, and you weren't there for some reason. I'm sitting there, mom's making, egg rolls or sushi or something. I'm like, I'm watching here. I'm like, oh, how should I never do that stuff? So it's a different world, you
We were
know?
talking back in the day, you just knock the door and open it, right? Knock
Yeah,
and
I
open it.
just walk in.
"Hey," stick your head in there.
Hey,
"Anybody
mom.
home?" And just start walking in, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's
and
like
one time nobody was there. I just walked in and sat there. Mom came home, like, "Hey, mom." Your mom, not my mom. It was his
Yeah.
mom. I called her mom. So, yeah, that was it was. Um, the and then I don't know what the last one was. Yeah, just kind of start out calm. Start
And
out calm and work your way through as you go through it.
and it's kind of funny because, when you're talking about that, it's all about presence. It's all about sort of staying present and grounded in the moment, and it's something
Mhm,
that we've talked about from the very beginning of the show. We talked about the golden sun meditation and all of these practices and Michael Singer's book about witnessing the thoughts and being able to sort of witness yourself in like a neutral third party. All of that brings you present.
mhm.
And I think it's almost reflecting on how these quote unquote spiritual practices, meditation practices actually make you have allow you to have a richer, more fulfilling life, because when
Mhm.
you are present, then those relationships are fuller and healthier,
Yes,
right? Rather than you being reactive
totally.
all the time and fuck you.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, you've got no friends because you're so pissed off at everybody or whatever,
You're
right?
upset, yeah.
You've pissed off everyone and whatever. But the idea of presence, of allowing, being open in the heart, getting out of the mind, that is so fundamental that when you can begin that journey and make that shift, it literally enriches everything in your life. It brings
And I
out the best version of you. It brings out the best version of everybody around you.
Mhm.
And it makes all of your relationships richer, healthier, happier
Yeah.
for you being your best version of yourself, right?
Yeah, and I was gonna say something, but you said it, so it's awesome. I want to remind him exactly what he just said. It makes your relationships with anybody richer because now
Yeah.
you're open and you're honest and you're respecting them. If they respect you, you respect them, and you're open about things and can have a discussion, then your relationship is going to grow stronger.
Yeah.
Whether it's a whether it's an acquaintance that you see now and then, but whenever you see them, it's going to be a strong bond, or it's someone you see every day.
Yeah.
That is going to grow. I will tell you a funny story. My mom always said, so when she was, her and Mike were married, um, she'd say, "Yeah, Mike's voting for such and such. I'm voting for such and such." We both said we're negating each other today. But they had. So I guess I learned that from them because they would talk about who they're voting for. And she's like, I'm not voting for him. And she goes, "I'm voting for this person." She goes, "So we know we're negating each other. So just so you
It's
know."
okay.
And I
Okay.
was like, "Oh wow." So that
Yes.
brought back that thing about my
You
mom
literally
and
had it
Mike.
modeled for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome,
so
dude.
kind of funny. But yeah, so just be first and foremost, be grounded and be calm when something comes up.
And
Say,
if you
"How do I
need
get through
to
this?"
and if you're watching this and you're wondering about that, we have a bunch of other videos you can watch
Yes,
that literally
go back.
talk about practicing the presence and how you get into the peace and the meditation
Mhm.
practice. It takes 2 to 3 minutes, and there's
Yeah.
other, techniques that we talk about grounding and how you do that so that
Mhm.
you can become more present. I think
Yeah, and
that's
yeah, and with and I'll give away a secret. Sorry, Steve. He doesn't know this yet, but so whenever I bring we're doing our ballot stuff. When I pull up to the restaurant, I just kind of go. I do a quick 1 minute,
yeah,
calm.
yeah.
Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Help Steve and I have this conversation,
Yep,
and go in. And
yeah.
we've never had a problem. There's
That's
never been a
beautiful.
problem. So
Beautiful, dude.
yeah. So
I think
all right.
that's a wrap, right?
That's a wrap, man. I think, and hopefully this next month, we'll have more podcasts, but hopefully the whole month and the month after, you guys are calm.
Yeah.
Practice a little bit of breathing. Okay, you want to, stop, drop, and breathe, and just kind of relax and go. How do I get through the situation and make it calm rather than be reactive and
And
make it an aggressive thing?
yeah, and you've come out of the other side of this time with richer
Oh,
relationships,
so
deeper
much.
relationships, more loving relationships, stronger bonds, stronger
Mhm.
connections, right? Not
Yep.
frayed. Not
Yeah.
frayed, frazzled dazzled where you're hanging on by a thread, right?
Right.
Let's
And And the first step, the hard part is starting those conversations.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's like when asking somebody out on the first date. Oh my God, do I remember?
uh,
This is the first step. You gotta go, okay, I want to have a conversation, but can we do this calmly? Oh
yes,
yeah. Wait, they
yes,
said yes.
yes,
Because it most likely will happen that way. So
yes.
so take that first step.
Yes.
That'll help you out so much.
It's
So
beautiful.
hope you guys have a good week, and hope you're having keep that smile on and just stay calm.
Beautiful. Thanks. Thanks for listening.